There is a quiet truth beneath the noise of the world and the endless chatter of the mind. It is a truth most people overlook because it feels counterintuitive, even unreasonable to the way we've been taught to live. It is the truth that everything we desire, everything we hope to receive or experience, is not accessed through grasping, striving, or relentless control. It is accessed by letting go. This idea feels backward to the conditioned mind. From the earliest stages of life, we are taught to hold on tightly to plans, to outcomes, to identities, to ideas of success and security. We are taught that loosening our grip means losing our power, that surrender is the same as giving up, that release means failure. Yet, despite how natural it feels to cling, this very habit becomes the reason so many people live in tension, frustration, and a constant sense of lack. The paradox is simple, though most resist it. Only when we release our grasp does life begin to bring us the very things we were seeking. Only when we step back from trying to control every outcome do the outcomes we long for begin to unfold, often in ways we cannot predict and at a timing we can never force. This is not because passivity brings rewards, nor because doing nothing attracts results. It is because our attachment and fear-driven control act as barriers to what is already meant to reach us. Letting go dissolves those barriers, allowing what is aligned to flow naturally into our lives. This paradox is not merely a spiritual idea or a vague philosophy. It is observable in the way life unfolds. The more tightly someone clings to a specific relationship, the more strain and friction is created until the relationship cracks. The more someone obsesses over a specific outcome, the more pressure builds until anxiety overrides clarity and inspired action. Conversely, when that tight grip is loosened, when attachment is replaced with trust and presence, opportunity, solutions, and even the people we were trying so hard to hold on to often return or arrive in a more natural and harmonious way. Why does this happen? Because control, at its root, comes from fear. The mind fears loss, fears uncertainty, fears the unknown, and so it tightens around people and circumstances, believing this will ensure stability. But fear creates resistance, and resistance blocks flow. What we resist cannot easily come to us, and even when it does, it often arrives with struggle and conflict. By letting go, releasing the mental insistence on how things must be, when they must arrive, and through whom, we dissolve the resistance and allow space for what is truly aligned to enter. It is not about abandoning desires or living without direction. It is about releasing the tension around those desires so that life itself can orchestrate the path. There is a deeper wisdom at work beyond the calculating mind, one that can see the timing, connections, and openings we cannot possibly perceive. When we allow space for this intelligence to operate, rather than constricting everything with fear-driven control, outcomes unfold with a grace that feels effortless compared to the grind of personal struggle. Most people have lived for so long in patterns of gripping that they do not even realize the weight they are carrying. There is the mental load of constantly rehearsing what might go wrong. There is the internal pressure of believing everything depends entirely on their effort and their plans. There is the silent tension of thinking they must earn love, prove worth, and force life into their preferred timeline, or else face disaster. These patterns are so normalized that exhaustion feels normal, but beneath the exhaustion is a quiet truth. Much of this weight was never meant to be carried. The moment we begin to loosen the grip, something shifts. At first, it may feel uneasy, as though releasing control is unsafe. The mind will protest, claiming that everything will fall apart without constant vigilance. Yet, as the grip softens, life does not collapse. Instead, clarity returns. Decisions become easier, not harder. Energy is freed for the things that actually matter. And perhaps most importantly, the very things we thought we had to fight so hard for begin to move toward us, not because we stopped acting, But because we stopped obstructing, there is an intelligence to life that most overlook because it cannot be measured or predicted in the ways the mind prefers. It is subtle but powerful. It organizes opportunities, brings people together, and opens paths that cannot be manufactured through force alone. Those who experience this often describe it as synchronicity or grace, but it is not random. It is the natural outcome of aligning with flow rather than resisting it. An alignment begins with letting go. Letting go does not mean rejecting ambition or abandoning effort. It means releasing the inner rigidity that insists everything must unfold according to personal timelines and conditions. It means no longer needing to control every variable before allowing peace. It means stepping into trust, not blind hope, but a grounded recognition that life moves more effectively when we are not constricting it with fear. The fear-driven mind resists this because it believes control equals safety, but true safety has never come from control. It comes from alignment. Control is a fragile illusion, requiring constant monitoring, endless adjustments, and an unrelenting pressure that never truly allows rest. Alignment, on the other hand, does not need to be forced. When we are aligned, when we are not fighting reality, when we are not demanding that life bend entirely to our mental plans, circumstances and opportunities begin to cooperate with us. Timing works in our favor. Encounters that seemed coincidental begin to carry meaning. Releasing control is not about becoming passive or indifferent. It is about choosing presence over obsession, clarity over anxiety, and trust over fear. It is about recognizing that the outcomes we seek do not manifest from sheer force, but from the combination of intention, openness, and the willingness to step aside and allow a greater intelligence to move things into place. The more this principle is understood, the more one sees that peace, love, abundance, and purpose are not rewards for relentless struggle. They are natural states that emerge when the barriers of fear and control dissolve. Struggle delays them. Release allows them. The paradox becomes clear. Clinging pushes away what we want, while letting go creates the conditions for it to come. This is not an invitation to wait passively, but to move differently, to take inspired steps without the heavy burden of desperation, to hold desires lightly rather than grasping them with white knuckles, and to understand that what is truly for us cannot be lost, while what is not for us cannot be forced to stay. This understanding frees us. It removes the constant need to micromanage every detail of existence. It removes the subtle panic beneath our decisions. It removes the illusion that we must be the source of all solutions. Instead, we begin to participate with life as partners rather than dictators. We act, but we also listen. We move, but we also allow. And in this balance, we discover a level of peace and ease that striving could never deliver. Letting go, then, is not a loss of power, but the restoration of it. It is the return to a state where our actions are supported by life itself, rather than resisted by the walls we build out of fear. It is the realization that the outcomes we seek most often arrive not when we tighten, but when we soften. Most people believe they cannot afford to let go. They believe that if they loosen their grip on their goals, their relationships, their finances, their future, everything will slip through their fingers. They believe control is survival, that planning is safety, that worry is a form of preparation. But what they do not see is that this very way of thinking is the reason they remain stuck, exhausted, and unfulfilled. Consider the pattern. How many times have you held on so tightly to something, a dream, a person, a result, only to watch it slip further away? How many nights have you stayed awake, replaying conversations, strategizing outcomes, rehearsing the future, all in the name of control, only to feel more drained, more anxious, and no closer to what you want? How many opportunities have passed you by because your mind was so fixated on a single outcome that you couldn't even see the doors opening elsewhere? This is not coincidence. Clinging blinds us. It narrows our vision until we see only what we fear losing, only what we demand must happen, and we miss everything else life is offering us. It also repels what we want because desperation is heavy. It creates pressure in our relationships, it clouds our judgment and decisions, and it sends a signal to life itself that we are not ready to receive because we are too busy trying to control. Letting go is the opposite of how we've been trained to survive, and that is why it feels unnatural at first. But if you want a different result, more ease, more opportunities, more peace, you cannot continue with the same mindset that has kept you in tension. You must understand that control is an illusion, and you must recognize the paradox. Everything you think you will lose by releasing your grip is far more likely to find you once you do. You have seen this, even if you have not named it. Think of the moments in your life when you finally stopped obsessing over something, when you finally said, "Enough, I can't force this anymore," and moved on. How often did the situation resolve itself, or transform, or even return to you in a better form once you stopped feeding it your desperation? This is not random. This is how life flows when we step out of its way. The truth is simple. The energy you bring to anything determines what it becomes. If you bring fear, desperation, and control, everything feels like a struggle. If you bring openness, trust, and presence, doors open naturally. The difference is not in how hard you push, but in whether you are aligned or resisting. Letting go dissolves resistance. And without resistance, life can finally do what it has been trying to do all along. Bring you what you need, often faster and in ways you could never plan. Some people resist this because they think letting go means abandoning effort or settling for less. It does not. It means taking action without fear dictating every move. It means doing what is yours to do and leaving the rest to the intelligence of life, instead of gripping every detail as though you can force perfection through sheer tension. It means trusting that what is for you cannot be taken, and what is not for you cannot be forced to remain. This perspective changes everything. When you truly understand it, you stop wasting energy on chasing things that are not aligned. You stop obsessing over timelines you cannot control. You stop contorting yourself to hold on to what is slipping away, because you realize anything that requires that much force is not meant to stay. Instead, you start noticing the paths and people that move toward you effortlessly. You see the opportunities that were blocked from view when your attention was locked on what you thought you needed. And without the weight of desperation, you finally have the energy and clarity to act decisively when the right opportunities appear. Life is not withholding what you want. It is only waiting for you to release the grip that is blocking its flow. And the moment you do, what is aligned begins to show itself. Many people hear this and still resist. They say, "If I let go, won't I lose everything I've worked for? Won't I fall behind? Won't I seem careless or lazy or irresponsible?" But look closer. Has your constant control ever guaranteed success? Has your relentless worry ever made life easier? The truth is that control is the slowest, most painful way to live. It creates tension in your mind, strain in your relationships, stress in your body. And still, it cannot protect you from uncertainty, because uncertainty is part of life. What control does is give you the illusion of power while stealing your peace. Letting go, on the other hand, gives you back your peace, and with it, a deeper kind of power, because you begin to see and act from clarity instead of fear. When you release the constant grip, you do not stop moving forward. You move forward differently, lighter, clearer, more receptive to the signs and opportunities life is offering. You begin to act not out of panic, but out of inspiration. And because you are no longer resisting life, life begins to cooperate with you. This is why the most transformative changes in life rarely come from brute force. They come from surrender, the quiet decision to stop demanding, stop clinging, stop trying to micromanage the entire universe, and instead move with life as a partner. This is the space where synchronicity happens. This is the space where the phone call arrives, the person appears, the opportunity opens. Not because you chased it, but because you allowed it. It can feel risky to take this path, but the real risk is staying locked in the old one. The path of constant tension, endless worry, and the exhausting illusion that you can control everything. If you want proof of which path serves you, simply look at the results so far. Has clinging ever truly given you peace? Has fear-driven control ever given you the security you crave? Or has it kept you in cycles of stress and striving that never seem to deliver lasting fulfillment? If you want a different result, you must choose differently. You must let go, not as a theory, not as something you say but do not practice, but as a way of living. Because only then can the life you have been seeking actually find you. Many hesitate to let go because their minds whisper the same fears over and over. If I stop trying so hard, I will fall behind. If I stop worrying, I'll miss something important. If I don't keep control, everything will collapse. But let's be honest. Has any of that control, all that tension, ever truly guaranteed the outcomes you were chasing? Has your worry ever prevented change or uncertainty? Has your endless planning and gripping ever given you lasting peace? Or has it kept you locked in a cycle, exhausted, anxious, and waiting for relief that never comes? The hard truth is this: control is not safety. Control is a prison disguised as security, and the walls of that prison are made of fear. Fear of losing, fear of failing, fear of being left behind. When you live from fear, every decision becomes heavy. Every action feels forced. Life becomes something to survive rather than something to experience. Now consider the alternative. Letting go does not mean you stop showing up for your life. It does not mean you abandon your dreams or surrender to chaos. It means you stop letting fear dictate every thought and decision. It means you release the obsession with outcomes and timelines, so your energy can be used to actually live, to notice, to respond, to take inspired action without the crushing weight of desperation. When you let go, something shifts immediately, even before anything external changes. Your mind quiets. You begin to see possibilities you couldn't see when you were tunnel visioned on one outcome. You notice opportunities you were too distracted to recognize before, and the situations you thought you had to fight for often begin to align on their own, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped blocking the flow with your fear and tension. It is not magic. It is how life works when you are no longer resisting it. The biggest mistake people make is believing that clinging is a form of strength. They think the tighter they hold on, the more likely they are to keep what they want. But clinging is not strength. It is weakness disguised as effort. It signals to life and to everyone around you that you do not trust, that you are operating from lack, and that fear is running the show. And fear never builds anything lasting. Think about the energy of a desperate grip. In relationships, it suffocates. In opportunities, it creates pressure and poor decisions. In creativity and work, it leads to burnout and frustration because you're no longer creating. You're forcing. Everything you hold in that way eventually breaks, not because life is cruel, but because fear cannot sustain connection, growth, or flow. Now think about the energy of someone who trusts. Not someone who is passive or careless, but someone who knows that what is truly theirs will not pass them by. They take action, but they do not chase desperately. They care deeply, but they do not cling. They allow others to come and go, opportunities to open and close, without collapsing every time something shifts. That energy feels lighter. And because it is lighter, people and opportunities gravitate toward it naturally. The choice is between these two ways of being. One leads to endless strain, exhaustion, and the constant fear that you're one step away from losing everything. The other leads to peace, clarity, and the surprising ease, where what is right for you seems to find you, not because you sit still and hope, but because you are not blocking it with tension and fear. Here's the paradox made plain. The more you fear losing, the more you push away what you want. The more you relax and trust, the more what is meant for you can come. This is not passivity, it is alignment. Some resist this truth because they believe their situation is different. They say, "But you don't understand, I can't afford to let go. My goals, my security, my relationships depend on me holding everything together." But look closely. Has holding everything together truly worked? Or has it drained you, alienated you from your own peace, and made the things you're clinging to feel heavier and more fragile than ever? Letting go is not abandoning those things. It is freeing yourself from the illusion that your fear is the glue holding life together, because fear is not glue, it is acid. It corrodes the very things you are trying to protect. When you let go, you begin to realize something profound. The things that are truly meant for you do not need to be strangled into staying. They remain because they resonate, not because you force them. And the things that leave, despite your grip, were never truly yours to begin with. No amount of tension can keep what is not aligned, and no amount of fear can speed up what is not yet ready. But letting go allows both to resolve naturally, the wrong things to fade, and the right things to find their way. This is why so many people describe their lives transforming the moment they stopped fighting. Not because they gave up, but because they finally stepped into trust. When you stop resisting, you stop blocking the unseen currents that have been trying to guide you all along. The relationship that ended makes space for a deeper connection. The opportunity that didn't work out clears the way for something better. The delay that frustrated you puts you in the right place at the right time later. None of this can happen when you're gripping so tightly that nothing can move. You may wonder, how can I know this will work for me? How can I trust that letting go won't just make everything fall apart? The answer is that you have already seen the cost of the alternative. You know, the weight of trying to control everything. You know how much it has drained your joy, your peace, and even your health at times. If control truly worked, you wouldn't still feel restless and unfulfilled. The fact that you are still searching is proof that control is not the solution. Letting go feels risky because it asks you to release the illusion of control, but the illusion has never given you what you truly seek. It has given you stress, tension, and temporary illusions of progress, but not the deep peace and steady flow you desire. That comes only when you finally trust. And trust is not blindness, trust is strength. It is the courage to live without strangling every moment with fear. It is the decision to act from clarity instead of desperation. It is the understanding that life does not need you to micromanage it in order to support you. It needs you to stop resisting so it can finally move. Once you experience this shift, you cannot go back, because you begin to see that letting go does not make life collapse. It allows life to work the way it was always meant to. The truth about letting go is simple, but most resist it because they do not want to face what it means about the way they've been living. It means admitting that fear has been running the show. It means seeing clearly that all the tension, the sleepless nights, the endless strategies and control have not been signs of strength, but signs of distrust. It means realizing that despite all the effort, peace has never arrived through control. But there comes a point where this realization can no longer be avoided, because the exhaustion becomes too heavy, the strain becomes too constant, and something inside whispers, there must be another way. That whisper is not weakness. It is clarity. It is the recognition that life was never meant to be survived through force. It was meant to be lived in flow and trust, with a steady confidence that what is truly for you will not require a desperate grip to hold. Look at the patterns in your life. How often has control actually delivered what you wanted? How often has worry created peace? How often has desperation brought you closer to the very things you were desperate to keep? Almost never. Because fear-based effort is not creative, it is destructive. It narrows your vision, exhausts your energy, and keeps you trapped in survival, unable to recognize when life is trying to move you towards something better. Letting go, on the other hand, restores clarity. It allows you to see which paths are truly aligned and which are simply distractions born of fear. It allows your energy to be focused where it matters, instead of scattered across 1,000 imagined problems. And it opens the space for life to finally do what it has been trying to do all along. Bring you what you truly need, not just what your fear-driven mind thinks it needs. Some people believe that letting go will make them lose everything, but the truth is that it is the only way to keep and attract what is real. Because anything that must be strangled to remain was never truly stable to begin with. And anything that is truly aligned will not leave simply because you stopped gripping it with fear. If something fades when you release control, it was not yours to keep. If something grows when you release control, it was always meant to be. This is the deeper security that control can never give you. Control makes everything fragile because it depends on constant effort. Letting go reveals what is solid because it requires no desperation to sustain it. Ask yourself this: what would your life feel like if you stopped gripping? If you moved toward your dreams without fear running every thought? If you allowed relationships to be what they are, rather than forcing them to be what you demand? If you trusted that the timing of your life does not need to match your mental calendar in order to be perfect, how much lighter would you feel? How much energy would you reclaim? How much more present would you be for the opportunities and relationships that are actually right in front of you? This is not theory. The moment you begin to practice letting go, even in small ways, life begins to shift. Decisions become clearer. Opportunities become more visible. And perhaps most importantly, your peace returns, not because everything outside you is fixed, but because you are no longer living as though your survival depends on controlling the uncontrollable. This is the state from which true success is built. Not frantic effort, not fear-driven action, but clarity, alignment, and trust. From this state, you still work toward your goals. You still take action, but you do it without the heaviness, and because of that, your actions carry more impact. You notice when doors are opening. You recognize when something is not aligned and walk away without panic. And because you are no longer pushing against life, life begins to cooperate with you. This is why those who truly understand this principle often describe their lives as becoming easier, not because challenges disappear, but because they are no longer fighting reality at every turn. They have learned that life does not need to be forced. It needs to be trusted. Letting go is not passive. It is the most active decision you can make because it requires courage. It requires you to choose trust over fear, clarity over chaos, presence over obsession. It requires you to stop doing what the world taught you, gripping, demanding, micromanaging, and start living from a deeper truth. And when you do, everything changes. The weight you've carried begins to lift. The relationships that drain you begin to fall away, making space for those that truly connect. The opportunities that felt distant begin to appear, and the goals you thought would take endless struggles start to unfold naturally, not because you gave up, but because you finally allowed them to. If there is one truth to carry forward, it is this: what is for you cannot miss you. What is not for you cannot stay. No amount of fear will change this, and no amount of control can rewrite it. The only thing control achieves is keeping you in tension, robbing you of the peace and clarity you need to actually recognize what is for you when it arrives. So you have a choice. You can continue to grip, to fight, to exhaust yourself believing that fear and control will bring you safety. Or you can let go, not as a theory, but as a way of living, and finally discover what life has been waiting to bring you. One path will leave you tired, anxious, and endlessly chasing a peace that never comes. The other will open a space for that peace to finally find you. The choice is yours, and it begins the moment you stop believing that control is strength. True strength is trust. True strength is the courage to release. True strength is knowing that life moves toward those who stop resisting it. If you truly want to receive what you've been asking for, stop gripping, stop demanding, stop believing you must hold up the entire world with your hands. Step back, release, and watch how quickly life begins to move, not because you forced it, but because you finally let it.